Section 9 of Tribal Custom and Anglo-Saxon Law. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Tribal Custom in Anglo-Saxon Law by Frederic Seebohm. Chapter 4, Tribal Custom of the Irish Tribes, Part 3. 4. The currency in which the Brehon fines were paid. Before leaving the Irish Kira an honest price, allusion must be made to the currency in which they were paid. The most significant point was the payment in cumhals, or female slaves. The cumhal was equated with 3 cows, but the payment was reckoned and stated in cumhals. The female slave was the prominent customary unit of payment, and doubtless a common object of commerce and trade. The equation of the cumhal and the cow with silver was also remarkable. The cow was equated with the Roman ounce, and the cumhal with 3 ounces. From a passage in the Census More and the Book of Echo, the following table of values is evolved. 8 wheat grains equal pingan of silver. 24 wheat grains, 3 pingans, equal skripal. 72 wheat grains, 3 skripals, equal sheep. 96 wheat grains, 4 skripals, equal dirt heifer. 576 wheat grains, 6 dirts, equal bow or cow or unga. 1,728 wheat grains, 3 bow, equal cumhal or female slave. These silver values, as compared with those of the Cymric codes, seem at first sight to be singularly low. The Welsh cow, as we have seen, was valued in silver at 3 Saxon ounces, and the male and female slave each at a pound of 12 ounces. The Welsh value of the cow was roughly 3 times, and that of the slave 3 1/3 times the Irish silver value. This Irish equation between cattle and silver must surely have been made at a time when silver was of quite exceptional value in Ireland, but there is some reason to believe that an earlier equation had been made with gold of a very different character. Professor Ridgway has called attention to an interesting story from the life of St. Finian in the Book of Lismore, in which an ounce of gold was required for the liberation of a captive, and a ring of gold weighing an ounce was accordingly given. Now, if the ounce of gold is put in the place of the cumhal, or female slave, the gold values of the Brehon monetary reckonings would be: cumhal equals 576 wheat grains equals ounce. Bow or cow equals 192 wheat grains equal stater or ox unit. Dirt heifer equals 32 wheat grains equal trimissus. These gold values, if established, would take their place at once as following the gold system of Constantine, and probably might belong therefore to a period in which the continental ratio of gold to silver would be 1 to 12, and the silver values fairly consistent with those of the Welsh and other tribes. The cumhal, or female slave, would then equal 12 ounces or 1 pound of silver as in Wales. This, however, must not be taken as proved. It is with the silver values of the Brehon laws that we are here concerned, and we should be tempted to refer the silver value to the period of Charlemagne's attempted introduction of the ratio of 1 to 4, were it not that, as we shall see, it seems to date back to a period some centuries earlier. There is another point of interest in connection with the early Irish monetary reckoning. We have seen that in the Brehon laws, the smallest silver unit was the skripal, or scripulum, and it has already been mentioned that the scripulum was also known as the denarius gallicus, of which 24 went to the Roman ounce of 576 wheat grains, as in the Brehon laws, and that a score of ounces made the mina italica of twice 5,760 wheat grains. It is curious to find in a passage quoted by Petrie from the Fulda Freebie in the Book of Balamot, a full and exact appreciation of the number of wheat grains in the scripulum and the Roman ounce. The wheat grains, according to this passage, are to be taken from wheat grown on typically rich soil, which produces the 3 roots, and 24 wheat grains are the weight of the scribal of silver, and 576 the weight of the unage or ounce. Further, it is stated that the full weight which the tindi or weighing bar is to weigh is not a pound. There is no mention of the pound, but 70 ounces. Now this reckoning, not in pounds, but in scores of ounces, has already been alluded to as, consciously or unconsciously, a reckoning in so many of the Minna Italica. Petri quotes a passage from the Annals of the 4 Masters in which this payment in scores is illustrated. A.D. 1029, Amlaf, son of Sitric, lord of the Danes, was captured by Mahan O'Regan, lord of Regia, who exacted 1,200 cows as his ransom, together with 70 British horses, and 70 ounces of gold and the sword of Carlos, and 70 ounces of white silver as his fetter ounces, and 80 cows for word and supplication, and 4 hostages to O'Regan himself as a security for peace, and the full value of the life of the 3rd hostage. Apart, however, from the monetary system of the Brehon laws, the fact remains that the real currency of early Irish custom seems to have been in cumhals or female slaves. The kirk deara and the honor price of the Brehon tracts were reckoned in cumhals, and we shall find that there appears to be good evidence that both payment in female slaves and the equation of the female slave with 3 Roman ounces of silver go back to a very early period. 5. The Irish kirk dear and honor price traced further back than the Brehon laws. The evidence regarding the kirk dear of the Brehon laws and its payment in female slaves does not rest on those laws alone. St. Patrick, in his Confessions, treats the pretium hominis as a well-known unit of value. These are the words of St. Patrick. Vos autem experti estis quantum ergavi, illis qui judicabant per omnis regionis, quos ego frequentius visitaban, sensio enim non minimum quam petrium quintus in hominum distribu illis. Translated, you know by experience how much I have paid out to those who were judges in all the regions which I have often visited, for I think that I have given away to them not less than the precium quindicum hominum. Further, in the tripartite life, St. Patrick is represented as putting the alternative between the death of a transgressor and the payment of 7 cumhals. Aut reum morti aut 7 ancelis redebi nebet. The evidence for this kirk deara and its payment in ancillary seems to be thrown back by these passages to the 5th century. Further, when we turn to the series of Canonis Hibernis, published in Vasilevens' work, Die Bußernorgen, die Abend dischen Kirche, we find repeated evidence that the pretium hominis, or pretium sanguinis, of 7 ancillary was a well-recognized unit of payment in ecclesiastical quarters more or less connected with the Irish and Breton churches. The first group of these canons is headed De Disputione Hibernensis Synodi et Gregorii Nazarenis, Sermo de Innumerabilis Peccatis Incipit. The first clause of this group imposes a penance for parricide of 14 years in bread and water and satisfaction, or half this only if there was no intention. The next clause imposes for ordinary homicide 7 years penance in bread and water. Clauses 8 and 10 fix the pretium animi of a pregnant woman, including woman and child, at 12 ancillary. Clause 9 fixes for us the silver value of the ancilla, and seems to show that it was the same as the silver value of the communal in the Brehon laws. The clause is as follows: 12 antilia, vel 13, sic 12, prudium uniscitas ancilli. Ecclesiastical usage retained to some extent the use of Roman phraseology. The siclus or sicilus, as we have already seen, was the didrachma of 2 Roman argenti, or silver drachmae. As we have already seen, was the didrachma of 2 Roman argenti, or silver drachmae. And as the drachma after Nero was 1/8 of the Roman ounce, so the sictus was 1/4. The atilia was the fattened heifer, possibly of Irish custom. 12 fattened heifers, or sicli, equaled therefore 3 Roman ounces, i.e., the exact silver value of the communal of the Brehon laws. Here, therefore, in these so-called Irish canons, the ancilla seems to be reckoned at the Brehon silver value of the communal. Having gained this point, we proceed to examine the other clauses. In Title 3, headed Synodus Habersinensis Decrevit, are the following: Sanguis Episcopi vel excelsis principes, vel scribi qui ad terram offenditur, si colera indegerit, eam qui effederit, sapientis crucifigi judicant, vel 7 ancillis redat. Translated: the blood of a bishop or high prince or scribe poured on the ground, si colera indegerit. The sapientis judge that he who sheds it shall be crucified or pay 7 ancilli. Here, obviously, the 7 ancilli are the price of the life of the criminal, the 7 cumhals of the curatera. The canon adds the following: si in species tertium partum de argenti, et comparum viticus de ora latitudinum nec non exilium oculi de gemma pretiosa magnitude redat. Translated: if paid in species, 1/3 must be paid in silver, and of gold of the size of the crown of the head, and also the like in precious stone of the size of an eye. These passages seem to have a curious correspondence with the following passage in the Brehon laws, sequel to the Grip Gravelach. As to the shedding of a bishop's blood, if it reaches to the ground as blood that requires attempt, the guilty person is to be hanged for it, or it is 7 cumhals that are to be paid for his sick maintenance and his eric. If the wound be in his face, the breadth of his face of silver is paid, and of the crown of his head of gold. The canons go on to state that if the blood does not reach the ground, nec colera indigeat, the hand of the striker is to be cut off, or the half of 7 ancilli paid, if the act is done with intention. If not, the price of 1 ancilla is to be paid. Another clause states that if a bishop be struck or violently handled, without effusion of blood, half the price of 7 ancilli is to be paid. In all these cases, the fines are reckoned in a unit of 7 ancilli, or the half of it. The cutting off of the hand of the criminal is reckoned as equal to half of 7 ancilli. The 7 ancilli is the recognized unit. When in other clauses dealing with the case of the same things done to a priest, a lesser punishment is decreed. Still, the price of 7 ancilli is the price of the life of the criminal. If the blood of a priest is shed and reaches the ground, dona colorium subvert, the hand of the criminal is to be cut off, or half of 7 ancilli to be paid, if the act be intentional. If not intentional, the price of 1 ancilla is enough. In Title 4, Dejectione, after a clause stating that he who ejects a poor man kills him, and he who meets a person ready to perish and does not succor him kills him, there follows this clause: si quis gestaret episcopum et si mortis ferit, accepatur ab eo pretium sanguinis, aegis L ancilis reddit. Id est 7 ancilis, uniscigus gradus vel 1 annis penitat et ex his exceptipor, 7 ancilli dejectione aegis. Translated, if anyone ejects a bishop, and if he should be dead, let there be received for him the price of his blood. Let him render 50 ancilli, i.e. 7 ancilli for each grade of rank, or do penance 50 years, or from these shall be received 7 ancilli, dejectione aegis. Here the ordinary presium sanguinis, or kirk dira, is again clearly reckoned at 7 ancilli, and the bishop, being of the 7th grade of rank in the ecclesiastical hierarchy, is to be paid for 7-fold. It is also worth notice that in these clauses the cutting off of a hand is reckoned as half of the pretium sanguinis. This is in full accordance with the Brehon rule laid down in the Book of Eckel. Half the ericphony of every person is to be paid for a foot, a hand, an eye, a tongue. But inasmuch as the ericphony, in this case, might be taken by mistake to include the honor price as well as the kirk dira, the commentary adds, he is entitled to half kirk dira and half compensation, eighthkin, and full honor price. The loss of the hand was reckoned at half the kirk dira. The full honor price was due for the insult or assault. Yet another clause in these canons seems to show that not only the kirk dira of 7 commuals was familiar to the makers of the canons, but also the honor price. In the Brehon laws, the honor price was payable for breach of a chieftain's protection, and in the case of the retooth, or kingly chieftain of a tooth, the honor price was, as we have seen, 7 commuals, and so also was that of the bishop of the church in his territory. Accordingly, in the following clause, in the canons, the bishop is put in the same position as a king, with what was practically an honor price of 7 ancilli. Particus dicit, omnis qui ossit furit, ea qui sunt regis vel episcopi, aut scribi, furcari, aut raperi, aut aliquot, et eidos committeri. Parviventis, disperi, 7 ancillarum pretium, reddit aut 7 annis peniatet cum episcopo vel scriba. Translated, Patricus dicit, everyone who shall dare to steal anything belonging to a king or bishop or scribe, or to take away from or commit anything against them needlessly, shall pay the price of 7 ancilli, or do penance for 7 years with a bishop or scribe. So that, though it is not very easy to put an exact date upon these canons, they seem clearly to adopt and confirm for ecclesiastical persons the Irish kirk dira of 7 ancilli, and the highest honor price also of 7 ancilli, and further the ancil of these canons was, it appears, of the same silver value as the commual of the Brehon laws. End of section 9.